Welcome to the Software Process and Measurement Cast number 694. I'm Tom Quigley, your host. Today, organizational design often collides with getting work done, generating friction that causes all manner of problems. No one goes out of their way to make things difficult. However, poor operating metaphors and one-size-fits-all solutions are never optimal. There is a way for Agile and team leaders to coexist, but can you take that path? Also, this week, Jon M Quigley and his Alpha and Omega of Product Development column make time for the cast. In this installment, we talk about time, including a few time-related puns. Let's dive in. Rationalizing Team Leads and Self-Organizing Teams by Thomas M. Quigley, Jr., Megan E. Quigley. Organizational design often collides with getting work done, generating friction which causes all manner of problems. No one goes out of their way to make things difficult. However, poor operating metaphors and one-size-fits-all solutions are never optimal. I hear the complaint that absolutes are never true, but this one may well be. There are typically three options: quit and find somewhere else to work, try to change the organizational structure, or compromise and muddle through. The latter approach is the path most organizations adopting or readopting Agile in 2022 take. There are all sorts of reasons, including that this late in the Agile adoption cycle, organizations and leaders are looking for. There are all sorts of reasons, including that this late in the Agile adoption cycle, organizations and leaders are looking for the safe, no pun intended, approach coupled with the hot mess the world finds itself in for the past few years. Very few people are looking to fight the whole entrenched power structure within the firm. Most firms bring in consultants for that chore. Rationalizing the impact of organizational design on effectiveness and efficiency is a cottage industry that exists just outside of the HR department's line of sight. Let's presume a typical large organization hierarchical structure: C-level executives, functional area leadership, senior manager kind of level, application managers, team leads, and team members. Your structure may differ or titles may differ. However, hierarchies are as common as dirt in most organizations, except in small or startup companies. Every level in the hierarchy represents a rationalization about how organization is disseminated and how group behavior is controlled. Hierarchical structures are just one approach based on one set of assumptions. There are lots of different approaches. Scrum and other Agile frameworks make differing assumptions. Self-organization is one of those different assumptions which collide with hierarchies. Any term prefixed with self in the context of team structure and behavior gives believers in hierarchy as a form of control heebie-jeebies. Understanding the concept helps diffuse the fear of anarchy. Self-organizing teams collectively control how they accomplish the work required in any specific sprint, if using Scrum. The team does not get to decide the organization's strategic or business goals or the projects they will be involved in. Management owns the environment, which provides the boundaries of direction and composition the teams will operate within, thus preventing chaos and anarchy. The role of the team lead is the hardest to rationalize when we are framing self-organizing teams in this manner. The fit of the role gets even worse when leveraging Scrum with a Scrum Master. It can render the role irrelevant. In our essay, The Team Leader Role in an Agile Environment, we defined three focus areas team leaders exhibit: manager, who is responsible for the execution of work, establishing and maintaining culture, and administrative aspects of the team. 2, straw boss, who manages the flow of work through a team that someone else prioritizes and accepts. 3, enabler, who focuses on helping team members operate as effectively as possible. While it is easy to accept that most individuals often exhibit attributes of 2 or more of these, one focus will predominate based on the culture of the organization. Scrum teams with a competent Scrum Master do not need 2 people playing the enabler role, while Agile teams striving to be more self-organizing will tend to chafe with a team lead playing a classic manager's role. Both of these scenarios reduce the role to that of a straw boss who has little direct authority. A team lead in a self-organizing structure works best when it provides an interface between the team and the outside management structure. The product owner is a key business interface, so therefore they can't play that role. Something we might attribute to the manager role. And, more importantly, technical acumen, deployed as something akin to a solution architect and guide. Their technical acumen provides guidance and leadership to the team, which adds a 4th focus area to our team lead model. Next, we'll work through struggling with becoming agile without re-architecting teams. Thoughts, comments, all welcome. Please feel free to reach out to us at spamcastinfo@gmail.com or call at 01440-668-5717. Leave a message. We look forward to the conversation. Jon M Quigley, welcome to the Software Process and Measurement Cast.
Howdy, Tom. It's always a pleasure to be here.
Jon, your alpha and omega of product development is a favorite?
That's good to hear.
Cool. And, for $5, I can make it a real... No, I'm kidding.
See me after the show. Yeah. Let's talk after the show.
Jon, time. Time is, it's a precious asset.
It flows like a river to the sea.
Yeah. Are you playing that bass of yours while you're singing that?
No. I'm trying to be serious for you.
Well, and that's fair, right? That we tell all sorts of stories about time. Time only flows in one direction, except if you look at certain kinds of physics where it goes the wrong direction. But regardless, right? Time, it's the thing that almost everybody thinks they understand.
Right. And they probably understand it in and of themselves, but that doesn't mean anything really.
Jon, I'll deliver in 15 days.
Yeah. Is that some hourly distribution over N number of days, or is that some number of calendar days in contingent, or is it some other thing? Is it depending on some other things? 15 days after this other event happens, which is going to be some number of days in some future.
And probably not absolutely fixed 100% in time to begin with.
That's the one that I find really interesting. We refer to things with some measure of certainty as if it will take 40 hours to do something. It takes 80 hours to do something, but there's often a lot of entanglements in that 40 or 80 and variation in that. We're making these judgments often without some kind of analysis on pre-existing conditions or things that have happened in the past. If this is something that we've done before, actually, we don't analyze that. We just blurt a number and everybody assumes the variation in that number is fairly low.
And well, of course, you say it with such conviction and precision. It's going to be 14 hours, 32 minutes, and 5 seconds.
Yeah, as if that's the thing, as if that's the case. Yeah, we act like we even understand variation, and that in this case, it does not apply, and that is absolutely not true. Even building houses, you have to account for the fact that the weather might be bad in the schedule, but software is not building houses, so you don't necessarily have to account for weather.
Of course not. And better yet, I love it when somebody else is determining how much time it'll take me to do something.
Oh, yeah. Top down. My
Yeah.
favorite. As in not really. Yeah. And then they make, it's not good when the people making the decisions let's see if I can do this without getting too up. In my experience, it's not too good when the people making the decisions, for example, for time, are not the people doing it, because the consequences for those misses often attach to those who are doing the work and not the person who made the decision that was taken, right? So the people who had to clean the mess up are the people who were stressed out already to try and make something happen.
Well, and the more stress they're under, the more mess they generally make.
Yeah, that doesn't help for sure. Right.
Jon, there are a lot of different ways to look at time. How would we have the right kind of a time conversation?
You should recognize that anything in your mind that applies to this time probably begin and ends there. In other words, the person you're talking to does not know what you're talking about when you say time. So if you're the one giving some kind of time number, you should be saying all the things that are around the assumptions, the things that you believe associated with that derivation, how you came to this conclusion of time. That way they can critique or dispel the things that you believe as truthful or not truthful, or accurate or not accurate is probably a better statement. And you can start to come to some common view of what this time thing really means, instead of the appearance or the illusion of an understanding of this. And if you're the one receiving it and you're not getting all this background information, you should be asking a lot of questions.
How did you come to this conclusion? How did you get to the point where you understood that my time and your time, even though we probably look at the same calendar, we probably have the same, clock, those sorts of things. In theory, it should all be the same. What got you there?
I think when you burn your hands on the stove a few times, metaphoric stove, you start to come to this conclusion. By the way, when you said my time and your time, isn't this like our time? Fast times at Ridgemont High?
Yeah. Ouch. I guess I walked into that one.
I wanted to lead with that rather than answer the question. But
if we have to attach all these caveats to every conversation about time, won't we spend 95% of our time, so to speak, listing out all of the assumptions?
Yeah, it's going to take time. But the thing is, you can either do that now up front and come to some common understanding and with those folks that you're articulating with, or you can just blurt something, go about your business, and have those discussions when you're late or things went differently than you expected, or the understanding of what that time meant creates some turmoil in the relationship or the rest of the depending action.
So in the product development world, what's a decent example of a snafu caused by misinterpretation of time?
I'll give you a good one. It's testing, right? Testing. You're through. The developers are through with some iteration of the product, and the product's getting ready to go. Should be getting ready to go for testing, and the testers say it takes this much time to test. Right? Let's say it takes 24 weeks just for a random something. It's a big thing. It's not just software. It's software and hardware, electrical, mechanical, vibration, all these things. It takes 24 weeks. What does that mean?
Well, my first guess would be I would take out the calendar, I would count 24 Saturdays from now and say, okay, I have it in 24 Saturdays.
That's a good guess, but you would be not necessarily right. That is
thanks
the
for
actual
playing, Tom.
Yes. In this case, in the example, no, the numbers I use may or may not be true because this is actually a real thing. The actual testing, that's the actual testing time. There are actions that happen before the testing that are prepping equipment, test fixtures, test data, and all that kind of stuff that goes along before it, right? That is not included in the test time. That's something else. So if you hand me the thing and expect 24 weeks later that you're done, it's not going to happen. But if you're
But John, I
communicating
promised to ship it on that date.
yeah. Well, that was a big mistake. You should have asked me about that for sure. Or you should have asked somebody about that, because just because something's ends testing doesn't mean that's a valid thing to be shipping. And that happens a lot, though. The expectation is, especially for late prototype parts, we're probably done, not going to find anything in testing. And hardware, in my experience, late prototype parts, hardware is usually pretty solid. Right? There might be some EMC things, but software, on the other hand, there's often changes right up until 0 hour. And so things may not come out exactly as expected right there at that final prototype iteration.
As someone who's an active participant in the product development world, is this an argument for long-lived teams that can understand when I say 24, what 24 really means? Or is this really an absolute requirement to spell out all of the caveats in case the players change?
Well, I think that long-lived teams are very helpful in this. You still have to have that conversation, but it happens a lot faster, to be sure, because you're already working from a common framework from the last stuff we did, right? And so, if I had got my hand metaphorically burnt on the metaphorical stove, the last time, I will have thought, okay, that I missed to ask these questions. So I get to build on that relationship the next time. I suppose that goes forward even if it's a new team. But you're starting from some common basis. If you're starting with a new team, then you have to have most of the team, if not all, with the belief that we don't really know what the other person is saying when they say the thing they're saying. We think we got an understanding, but that's only superficial. And that's not necessarily helpful.
John, if you were giving advice to someone who is new in our business and could give them 3 questions to ask about time, at least until they had a gray beard, what would those 3 questions be?
I think the first one would be, it's great to ask questions. If you have them it's good to have them when the discussion starts, but if they pop in your head after that, write them down and get those questions in front of the person that you're talking about time with, right? Don't let that wait. The second would be, probably couples with that, never assume all the backstory behind these estimates. Dig for those until you actually have a common understanding, and have them ask you questions back to see if you get it as well. So that would probably be the second. And then include as many other folks that are doing the work around you, because they're going to see these things from a different perspective. It's like that, back in the old days, I remember taking a drafting class, I think was CAD, I don't know, probably on a board, where you drew a square. It's just a square, but when you start to move the thing and then you ask it to draw out what it really is, which is more like a cube. It's just like that. From one perspective, it only looks like one thing, and it might be very simple, but from other perspectives, that's where the diversity thing comes in. That's where you want it. You want that diversity of experience and perspectives to kind of put all those questions on the table to narrow in on what we're really speaking about when it comes to the estimates, to the scope of the estimates, to the things in the background that are making us say the things we're saying or think the way we think. Experiences.
Jon M Quigley, thank you for taking time to have a conversation about time on the Software Process and Measurement Cast.
Thank you, Tom. It's always a pleasure to be here and talk about time, ticking away kind of thing, the moments that make up not so a dull a day.
John, by the way, could you take some time and tell us how people can find you and continue the conversation?
I can be found on LinkedIn at Jon M Quigley, or you can email me, john.quigley@valuetransform.com.
Thanks again, John.
Thank you, Tom. Have a great one.
In Reread Saturday News, the accountability conversation is the 5th and last conversation addressed in our reread of Agile Conversations by Douglas Squirrel and Jeffrey Fredrick. In Chapter 7, the authors define accountability as being obligated to render an account of what you have done and why. Next week, we'll cover the conclusions and some final thoughts. Then we'll have a quick interlude rereading Jim Benson's Why Limit Whip while we run a poll to select the next books. Next week, Julia Lamb, co-founder and CTO of Stitch, we talked Agile, startups, security, and more. If process improvement is a never-ending journey, why do so many people ask, are we there yet?